Hey guys, today I wanted to talk a little bit on two pieces of information that came out during E3 about what's going on with Year 1 weaponry going into Year 2 of Destiny 2. Bungie has said that stuff from Year 1 will be able to be brought up to Year 2 power levels. The max power level is going to be 600 with Forsaken. A quick note on that, I think the big jump is good for the game because it allows Bungie to have more room to work with in terms of being able to distribute items over a wider range of activities. We don't have to worry about Bungie only having this tiny gap to work with. Plus, the bigger the number jump, the more exciting it can feel to level up. But, back to the main point, Year 1 stuff is coming into Year 2. And I am worried about this move. I made a video back in the House of Wolves days when Bungie introduced a thing called Etheric Light, where you could take an Etheric Light, drop it into an item from the past, and it would become a current level item. This means all of the stuff from the original release of the game and the previous expansion could be brought up. At the time, this was simply a band-aid move by Bungie until they could rework the leveling system, which eventually became Infusion. Also at the time, this was widely celebrated because it brought forward fan-favorite weapons like Fatebringer, Black Hammer, Gjallarhorn, and a few others. What it also did was make nearly every weapon in the House of Wolves expansion irrelevant, save for some niche PvP items. Very few of the weapons in House of Wolves, from a min-max perspective, were better than items from the past. Fatebringer, Black Hammer, and Gjallarhorn was one of the, if not the strongest loadout in the history of Destiny. All of these items would become exotics later on, with Gjallarhorn already being one. We had a loot game where suddenly half of the loot from the newest thing in the game was made irrelevant in an instant. This is my fear for Forsaken, as this situation has happened multiple times in Destiny's lifespan. With the ability to bring forward Year 1 items, things like Midnight Coup, Legend of Acreus, Inaugural Address if you're on PC, Perfect Paradox, the Icolo Shotgun, Better Devils, etc., may still very well reign supreme unless Bungie somehow makes weapons even more powerful than the ones I just listed. In a typical RPG setting, this would be done by creating new weapons that simply do more damage, right? That's how it works. But in Destiny, that doesn't happen because every weapon can be turned into an endgame power level weapon, which I would say is a good thing more than it is a bad thing. Instead, endgame weaponry relies on the perk system, and weapons that are good have the best perks, and weapons that are bad have the bad perks, and it doesn't matter where these weapons drop. Gun archetype also matters. This is why we've seen stuff like Better Devils, which is a random crucible drop, be one of the best weapons in the game, and also why some raid weapons be some of the least used weapons in the game. Midnight Coup, in my opinion, is a better weapon than Fatebringer in certain situations, and the only way you're going to dethrone Midnight Coup is if you, 1, retire the weapon by making it unable to progress in levels, or 2, make something even better than Midnight Coup. Midnight Coup is one of the strongest PvE weapons in the game, featuring Outlaw and Rampage, two of the strongest perks in the game. So Bungie would need to make something even better than this, and by extension, every other top tier weapon in the game, or make it the same, which would be kind of boring, in order for those newer items to be used. Same thing goes for any other weapons that I mentioned earlier. Now, as a mainly PvE player, that actually sounds pretty awesome, coming up with perks even stronger than the top tier stuff we have now. My worry is that Bungie doesn't do that. My worry is that Bungie does not create enough of an incentive for people to use those new weapons, and we end up with a House of Wolves, Curse of Osiris, even a Warmind situation where there are only 1 or 2 weapons in the entire expansion that are even worth chasing. I don't really buy the argument of Well, just don't use the stuff from the past then, because players like myself are always going to want to be using the best items whenever the time comes. If the best item is still Midnight Coup, I'm probably going to use it. If the best item is still Midnight Coup, and people ask me what's the best item, I'm going to tell them Midnight Coup. To get a little more personal, I like having the slate wiped clean and having to go venturing back into greens and blues. It's part of the fun of a new expansion for me. New armor, new weapons, and just leaving the past behind. That's why I enjoyed Taken King as well. Everything was new. You couldn't bring anything forward. You had to start from scratch. You used weapons because they were just the best thing that you could find. I don't want to just keep infusing my current stuff. Again, I realize I could just not, but I will eventually if it's the best option. However, there are plenty of people who hate all of that. And if I were to wager a guess, it probably mostly consists of people who don't get to play too often. If you don't get to play a lot and finally manage to grab a raid weapon, you'd probably be pretty annoyed that you couldn't use it anymore after Forsaken launches. There's not really a right or wrong answer here though. It's mainly personal preference. Historically speaking, a lot of MMO type games have left all that stuff in the past. Some people don't mind hanging onto their stuff. Some people like a clean slate. Man, remember when I would just declare my personal preference as the correct thing or the better thing? Times sure have changed. Ultimately, what I'm hoping for is that Bungie properly incentivizes new loot in Forsaken. I want to be excited about new loot in the expansion. I want weapons to be powerful. I want armor to actually be worth something instead of just solely a cosmetic choice. I do not want to eventually revert back to the same weapons I've been using all year one because everything else in the expansion sucks. Something that will definitely help this cause is the new weapon system, where we get much more freedom in our loadouts. We will no longer be confined by 2 primary weapons and 1 power. Bows being added to the game may help this as well. Hopefully we'll have nothing to worry about in the long run, and to be honest, I'm not as worried since this is a larger expansion, but it is still very much a concern of mine, especially since we've had this issue multiple times in the past. The other thing is that Year 1 weapons will not be receiving the random roll treatment when Forsaken rolls around. Year 2 weapons will have the random rolls, Year 1 weapons will not. While this may help the loot is irrelevant situation in my favor, a lot of people are wondering why Year 1 weapons won't get random rolls. My assumption, as with most of these things, is that there is some behind the scenes technical reason as to why they won't be getting random rolls, but nothing has been confirmed so far. I think a lot of people want random rolls on Year 1 weapons to make them relevant again as well. While I'm personally not too invested in having Year 1 weapons stay relevant, many others are, and some answers on that front would be nice. If it were as easy as flipping a switch, I'm sure it would be happening, but hopefully Bungie can come out and make light of why Year 1 weapons aren't getting random rolls. That's what I got on both of those situations. Year 1 stuff coming into Year 2. I've had the question posed a lot to me during streams and stuff, so I just kind of wanted to put my answer out there. I just want loot to be not boring. That's all. I just want it to be exciting and have new stuff to look forward to. That's all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.